Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the beautiful Golden Triangle in Chiang Rai province here in far north Thailand. Um, it is for us a relatively cool day today, so this is not one of these fake Zoom backgrounds. This is actually a real background. I will get out of the way. I've decided to come out into the sunshine to warm up and also to make you a little bit jealous, those of you who can't travel to Chiang Rai. Because we are here and enjoying the cool weather if you happen to be from Bangkok and the warm weather if you happen to be anywhere else in the world. So welcome aboard and welcome to this week's Elephant Professional Lecture. With this week, we're going to stick with our subject of human-elephant coexistence, which is something that is very, very important. And if we're going to protect elephants as a species across the globe, it's something we're going to have to get used to because thankfully in a lot of places, wild elephant populations are increasing. There are under threat in other places as well. And human population is increasing massively as well. And so if we're going to share our planet with elephants, as I think everybody on this lecture will firmly believe we should, we're going to have to find a way to coexist. This week we will take you across or back. We have already been to Tsavo, to Kenya, and we will hear from Lynn von Hagen, who has been working in the Kasigau Wildlife Corridor of Kenya. She's currently in the States, but itching to get back to either Kenya or come and visit us here, I'm sure. And she will explain a little bit about her project, which I first came to know about talking to some friends of mine, Wildlife Works, who handle the carbon offsets for our corridor in the Cardamom Mountains in Cambodia. So that's how it came in, and that's how we met Lynn first of all. And then turns out that Lynn knows some of the other people who've given talks in Tsavo. So it's a very small world, the elephant world. Lynn will talk a bit about her general project, and then one of the reasons we invited her on is because she and her colleague Simon Kasaina, which I pronounced very badly, sorry Simon, have come up with a cheap and elephant-friendly and farmer-friendly method that seems to be working. They published the paper, seems to be working very well to keep elephants away from crops in Tsavo. And one of the things we like to do with these lectures is find methods that could be working and ask the people who devised them to share them, so anybody else around the world can possibly implement, and hopefully in a scientific fashion tell us whether they work and how they might adapt, and hopefully promote human-elephant coexistence across the world. And on that note, I don't think I can say anything better than to hand you over to Lynn and learn all about, first of all, the Tsavo and the Kasigau Wildlife Corridor, and then more about the new fence that is keeping elephants and keeping the peace between farmers and elephants in Kenya and Tsavo. So, Lynn, good morning or good afternoon where you are. Please do let us know. Tell us all about it.
Thanks, John. It's actually evening here. I'm coming to you from Nashville, Tennessee in the States. So let me get set up here. Okay. So what spurred this talk, as John was saying, was a recent paper our research group published about a new deterrent method, but I also wanted to talk today about some of the interdisciplinary approaches that we're taking at our research site in Kenya. So first, I'll talk a little bit about the project itself. The Elephants in Sustainable Agriculture in Kenya project kicked off in 2016. Luckily for me, that was about the time I decided to go back to school as a non-traditional student and do my master's. And it was part of a grant with the Earthwatch Institute. It involved us welcoming 6 different groups each year as volunteers to help with this citizen scientist project. It was also funded by the International Elephant Foundation, and it was this really great collaboration between these different multiple institutions and universities, and mainly facilitated by Wildlife Works, which John mentioned, which is a carbon offset company that preserves forests around the world and operates through Kinga Ranch Wildlife Sanctuary in Kenya. And this is just some of our great team. Our PIs are up in the top left corner. Many of you may recognize Dr. Bruce Schulte of Western Kentucky University, my mentor, who has been working with elephants for over 20 years across the world in Africa and Asia. And he worked closely with Dr. Betts Rasmussen, who was one of the pioneers in chemical communication in Asian elephants. And the center is Dr. Urbanus Muiwa, our agricultural expert from Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology in Nairobi, and Dr. Mwangi Githiru, who is the head of research at Wildlife Works. And then in the top right, you see me amongst our amazing field scientist team. On the left, Bernard Amakobe, who handles biodiversity monitoring for Wildlife Works. And then Simon Kasaine, who we mentioned was the inventor of the fence, who can also conduct social monitoring for Wildlife Works. And we also have one of our amazing volunteers that's helped us out in the last several years. Now, our newest team member is down in the bottom center, and that's Miss Sophia Corday. And then we've also added Dr. Chris Lepschick, who is my newest mentor as part of the team from Auburn University, where I'm doing my PhD program. And I've also gotten the unique opportunity to stay with the same project in both degree programs while pursuing some new lines of research. There's many others who have participated and helped out with the studies, from community members to rangers and many, many more. So as most of you all know, human-elephant conflict is just big, wicked problem with so many different moving parts. And that was going to be the focus of the project, to try to explore different ways to promote coexistence and examine this problem from as many different aspects as we could. This is just a quick list of some of the different disciplines or subdisciplines that we've been using, and other research as well, to explore some of these different viable solutions. I've tried to put as many wild elephant pictures in here for you as I can, John, because I know that you like them. Now, a little bit about our study area. As you can see from the map here, Rukinga Ranch is one of 13 community ranches within the Kasigau Wildlife Corridor of Kenya. And this area lies between Tsavo East and Tsavo West National Parks. Now, wildlife moves between this corridor, and you can see they have to cross through a lot to get from one place of safety to another. There's 2 railroads, a major highway, shops, businesses, farms, and of course, this is where a lot of the crop raiding actually occurs, which is the main form of conflict. We do see some water tanks destroyed and things like that, but the majority of the conflict occurs when elephants are going into crops. Now, the greater Tsavo ecosystem is home to Kenya's largest elephant population of over 12,000 elephants. Sadly, in the 80s and 90s, like many areas in Africa, the population of elephants was just decimated by poaching, losses in some areas of up to 90% of elephant herds. Luckily, since then, Kenya has been doing a really good job at controlling poaching, so that is no longer the main threat to elephants in this area. And as these populations are starting to rebound, they're moving into areas and finding that there's lots of people there. The human population is surging, habitat loss is continuing. And sadly, many people that live here and amongst the elephants really live in fear of the elephants and kind of see them as an oversized pest and a threat to their livelihoods. So this is a paper that we published just a couple months ago this year. It talks about the study that I'm going to profile for you tonight. It came out in the African Journal of Ecology, and it focuses on our evaluation of Kasaini metal strip fences and several other different deterrent types. What we really wanted to do with this just was to set it up where we could test multiple different types of deterrents used to prevent crop raiding, of course, and see what worked best in a kind of side-by-side comparison. So we had this wonderful army of volunteers that was there to help us set up the fences, as you can see in the bottom right there. We're actually laying out the design to be able to put in fence poles. So we designed this large-scale randomized paired control study of 4 different types of deterrent measures, each with a matching control. Now, this is a bit unusual, as most of the time these types of experiments, the control fences are just usually, no protection whatsoever. But what we wanted to do is really see if we could isolate the factors that were making some of these fences successful. So we set up 4 different blocks. Each one of them was 325 meters long. These all occurred in the farming vicinity of community, which is on the border of the sanctuary. And you can see in the diagram here where the road, which is the dividing line between the wildlife sanctuary and the cultivated lands, each of the different blocks had 8 different fields per block, and we had 4 different blocks. So quite a large experiment. So one of the things that I focused on in my master's was looking at the 3 key things that you want to keep in mind if you want to find a deterrent method that can really be successful for local people. You have to keep in mind that many of these communities don't have electricity, running water. They're completely subsistence farmers, no type of transportation, just bare bones minimum as far as access to resources. So the number one thing is it has to be affordable. Many farmers we have found just simply don't have any extra income to devote to deterrence, which is why they rely more on traditional methods, which are also more dangerous. Second, it has to be practical, perhaps made out of readily available materials, something that's low maintenance. But most importantly, it has to be resistant to habituation from elephants. We all know how incredibly smart elephants are. And so it has something without a deterrent method that you design that doesn't have a consistent negatively reoccurring stimulus. It's probably not going to be very effective for long because elephants are going to get used to it or be able to figure it out. So this is pictures of the 4 different types of deterrents that we tested. One of them was Chilli fences in the top left. Many of you may have heard of these or are familiar with them. You simply crush up ground chili peppers, mix it with engine oil, and then you saturate cloths and then hang them around the area that you're trying to protect. Now the matching control that we did for this one was the same exact setup. We just did cloths that had only the oil and not the chili peppers on them to try to see how much the power of the chili peppers was really the effective factor. And the next is the Kasigau fence, which essentially acts like a giant wind chime. Anytime you come into contact with it, or if the wind blows, it makes this annoying rattling noise. The control for that one was just a simple wire with twists in it, no metal strips. And of course, we're going to talk about this one a bit more. And then we also used acacia thorns with nothing as the control, which served as a macro control. And then we wanted to see if we combine 2 different types of deterrent methods, if that would be even more successful. So in the bottom right, we have a chili fence combined with a metal strip fence. And then the controls for that one was just the same as the one I've mentioned before. All right, let's see if we can get our movie to work here. All right, so here we're kind of flying over and looking at what one of the aerial views of one of the experimental blocks looked like. We did create gaps in between each deterrent field of 6 meters so that people could pass through, and that so we didn't have any bleed over from the different deterrent techniques. We set up camera traps at strategic positions, and then we had fence attendants that patrol the area each morning to check for footprints, signs of other types of wildlife. And of course, we spent lots of time in the field ourselves, especially when large raids occurred. We tracked the patterns and the ways that they moved through their field. So we quantified not only the times that fences were broken, but how much damage occurred to the crops if they were able to get into any of these fields. The results we're talking about today occurred over 2 trials in 2017 and 18. And the experiment is still ongoing with some modifications and different and new types of deterrents. So this is kind of what is great about this experimental design, is that you can switch out one of the deterrents, say if it's not working well or you don't want to continue to use it, and you can try something new. So we built this big experiment, and of course the elephants came. We had over 300 elephant visits to fields just within 2 different growing seasons. Lots of really interesting camera trap images. We found lots of other wildlife were also present, especially elands, which is a bit of a surprise, as most of the villagers will pretty much blame everything on the elephants. Now, a little busy results screen here for you. We analyzed the data at both 6 and 25 meters or less. And we compared the times that they were in the fields approaching the fences to the times that they actually broke or breached the fence. And then we ranked each deterrent in terms of its effectiveness and then the percent that it was effective. And the most effective was, as you can see by the chart, the Chilli plus metal fence and the metal strip fence. And sadly, the active Chilli fence came in 6. It didn't do very well at all, which is a little bit contradictory since the combined fence of the Chilli plus metal did do really well. And even the controlled Chilli fence did better than the active. So a little bit curious results there. So what we've done to resolve that is subsequently we went through and tested the same deterrent, but have added no Chilli mixture to it to see if the fact that maybe there's 2 layers of deterrents, which is why it gave it better power. And it could be that the cloths are just flapping. It could be that the chili peppers themselves are really not that effective. And now with any type of study that relies on chance for sample sizes, of course, we do see they're a bit low, which is why these are just preliminary results. We certainly aren't claiming that metal strip fences are the solution to resolving human-elephant conflicts, but they definitely do warrant further investigation. And one thing you see is that no one deterrent method has really emerged as the perfect solution in every environment, in every country, in every place. that elephants are at. Populations vary as well, but this could end up being another option for villagers. In the graph in the bottom right, you can see as the effectiveness of the fences declined, the percentage, then you saw the number of successful raids, or the times that elephants were able to get in, actually increased. So I'm going to play a little video here so you can actually see the fence, how it works, and hear the noise. So one of the reasons that we may have seen success with this deterrent method in this environment is that it's really windy in this area. This was just an ordinary day. And another observation that we've had in subsequent testing is that when an elephant breaks into one of the fences, it really doesn't stay long to eat. And that's a measurement that can sometimes be overlooked. I mean, an elephant's breaking a fence is not good, but if it breaks the fence and then it doesn't stay and doesn't really consume any crops, that's a much better result than an elephant breaking into a fence and spending the whole night just dining and eating and trampling until it's exhausted and decides to leave. So we also see with this technique that the maintenance is really very low. The toughest thing is that the poles may have to be replaced every few years because of termites. When we built our fences, we actually used poles that we bought. And we treated them for termites, but we noticed after a year or two, even with the treatment, they'll still sometimes be getting eaten by termites, so they have to be replaced. But it's constructed by cutting mabati metal, which is widely available into these little strips. This is a lot of the metal that sometimes you see people that make their shops with, or they put on the top of their houses. But you cut them into these strips and then you hang them on the binding wire. You create a twist about every 2 feet or so, so that all the pieces don't slide down into the middle. And then you hang the length of fence about at 1.5 meters. So not only can you find the materials locally, if it's broken, it's really easy to repair. It's super simple. The wire is a flexible binding wire. So if an elephant or a person comes through and snaps it, all you have to do is pick it back up, twist it back together. And the cost of this ranges anywhere from about 34 cents to $1 US per meter. So that's 34 Kenyan shillings to about 100 Kenyan shillings. And the biggest variation there is the source of the poles. You can actually plant trees instead of poles, and you have kind of a living fence. It's also a little bit gentler on the environment too. And then you have a living fence kind of made out of the same deterrent method. So those results kind of beg the question, why does this deterrent and others that are successful, such as beehive fences, work? For the metal fence, we believe it's because the recurring noise might make elephants believe that humans are nearby. No doubt that elephants are afraid of humans, or it could be that they're afraid the noise will alert humans to their presence. We really don't know what the elephants are thinking, of course, but we can hypothesize. The elephants in this population seem to be very cautious when they're cooperating. It occurs right near people's homes. So people could very easily come out of their houses and right on top of an elephant. So you can imagine how frightening that must be, knowing if you go outside at night, you can find an elephant right there in your garden. Either way, you can see here the elephants simply don't really like the fence. They will choose to go around it pretty much anytime if they have a choice. We have been putting up some frontline fences in other communities, and elephants are not very happy about it. The villagers are. And we see similarly that if it's broken, then they just make a beeline away from the fence and head somewhere else. We also have to remember that one of the reasons it may be working here is that it's so windy and it makes the noise intermittent. So the outstanding question that we have is, will elephants habituate to it over time? We expect that there would be a decline as elephants start to figure it out, but how much, if any? We do have some habitual crop raiders in our area. We've developed a database of over 150 bulls that we've identified. And through the catalog, we've caught about a dozen of them that are crop raiding, with some of them repeat offenders. So as in many communities, that could be a problem. You might start to see elephants that have figured out a fence and come back night after night. But we also have a very transient elephant population here. So a lot of the elephants that are moving through this area may be encountering these fences for the first time. But I would definitely recommend any households that are going to try this out should probably remove the fence whenever it's not needed. You can simply untwist these and store them somewhere. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to do that because of logistics, but I believe that, you know, the less wildlife is exposed to that or any other type of fence, the more likely that the habituation will not be as high. So what is next for our little deterrent investigation that we're having? Details on construction are in the paper. I mentioned that, but what I'm trying to do right now is work on a construction guide that is illustrated so we can actually pass it out to farmers or anyone interested in trialing these. We do have ongoing trials on the fence. We've had over 7 trials now, and we're about to go into our 8th trial. We have a new grad student I mentioned earlier, Sophia, who was working on analyzing the data from the remaining trials. And we're looking at different abiotic factors that may influence the effectiveness of the fences as well. Now, we have been trialing beehive fences, and for the first time, we've actually done this with an entire field of just mock hive fences as a control to see if we can isolate how much of the success in the beehive fences is due to the bees and how much of that is just that it's a novel barrier. These seem to have done really well for us from the preliminary data. Again, we're still analyzing that. The gang at Save the Elephants is about an hour away from us, and we've really enjoyed working with them. We're hoping to deepen that collaboration next year if we're able to return to Tsavo as planned because of the pandemic. Our challenge with the beehive fences for us has been farmer upkeep. I mean, getting the bees to stay, as we're in a really dry part of Tsavo, but I'm hoping that we can still demonstrate that even without the hives being actively occupied, that we're still seeing that they're successful. And we've also created a double Kasigau fence. And this is just 2 strands of metal instead of 1. That's still fairly new. We've not had anything break it yet. But again, the sample size is really small at this point. So we're still trialing that, but I think that's going to be an even better solution than the single. And we're really intrigued to try some new combinations of fences to see if more is simply better, perhaps layering different types of deterrents. You know, the idea is to really kind of see if we overwhelm the senses of an elephant, will they just decide to go elsewhere? But in all deterrent work, that's one of the big challenges. If you repel the elephants, where are they going to go? It might be the neighbor just down the way. So you have to come up with something that you can really try to find that can make entire communities resilient. So now we're going to go back to the theme of interdisciplinary approaches. You might have seen biochemistry I listed earlier as something, and you're probably wondering, well, how does that help at all with human-elephant conflict mitigation? Well, I certainly had to be persuaded to undertake this line of experiments, not having much background in biochemistry at all. But Bruce and I partnered with the Advanced Materials Institute at Western Kentucky University and the brilliant chemist Pauline Norris. And what we wanted to look at was trying to quantify the heat in those chili pepper fences. Now, as I mentioned, they didn't do that well for us, but there is a lot of variety. Some studies have been very successful, 100%. As you can see, for us, it was about 60%. So that was one of the questions, why so much variation in this type of technique? So we wanted to see if we could create a method that would let us measure the capsaicinoids in these chilies and oil mixtures. The capsaicinoids are the compound that give peppers their heat. It's measured in Scoville heat units. And capsaicin and dihydrocapsaicin make up the majority of these compounds. And these are regularly quantified in everything from hot sauces to salsas. But we wanted to see if we could extract and get a measurement from something, you know, as junky and sludgy as this motor oil and chili pepper mix. So Pauline recommended we turn to liquid chromatography and mass spectrometry. That's a mouthful. And you can see some of the results in another short methods paper that we published just earlier this year. And what we wanted to do was look at 3 different things. We wanted to see if we could develop this method, if it was possible. Spoiler alert, it was, hence the paper. But we also wanted to see how different preparation methods and formulas varied, and then what was the most successful and simplest method. But we also wanted to really see if we could measure for the first time how and if this compound degraded over time. So I went about recreating a chili fence in the lab. As you can see here, and some of the different preparation techniques. So some of the chili fence preparations that Kenyans use involve boiling the chilies in water in the field before making them into a mixture with the oil. So we created that formula, and then we recreated a formula that just put the dry raw chili peppers into the mix without boiling it. And then we saw that really clearly there was no difference in the two different mixtures of whether they were boiled in oil or whether they were put just straight in with the motor oil. So what does that mean for conservation? Well, first, knowing that boiling is unnecessary, it's important because it can waste time and resources in the field. We also see that getting stronger peppers may be necessary just to be able to have a more effective fence. So we also wanted to know how much of the heat is lost as this mix, sits in different environmental conditions. Most of the time, they recommend about 15 days before you reapply the mixture, or if it rains, whichever comes first. And as we see here, we looked at the mixtures and how they degraded over 7 days, and there was very little loss of heat at all. Now, these results will be part of a second publication that we're working on right now. So these are, again, just preliminary. But we also tested some alternative solvents to motor oil. As it's really not something that you want to be putting into the environment. It's also very messy, and I'm very happy that we've discontinued it for use at our study site. But I'm interested to see the results once they're analyzed about other potential mixture alternatives. So this is just another example of getting some really useful information from conservation from an unexpected yet really connected discipline of science. And so the last discipline I wanted to mention here was sociology, which probably anyone working with elephants and the communities that live with elephants recognizes as being inextricably linked with conservation at this point. It's become such an important part of planning. Community-based conservation programs are really starting to become the norm, thankfully. So one of the ways that we're exploring some of the more human dimensions of human-elephant coexistence is through surveys in 6 of the communities surrounding the wildlife sanctuary. Lots of important questions to ask about who the conflicts really affect. We find that the majority of farmers in our area are women, how they are dealing with it, and really understanding the attitudes and perceptions towards elephants and overall conservation, and some of the solutions that the community can come up with that could be helpful. You really quickly begin to understand that most of the contention that occurs is really because communities have no resilience to events such as crop raiding by wildlife, or losing crops to drought, family medical emergencies. So really a large part of these conflicts are because of poverty, people's lack of access to resources, and really any resilience at withstanding these encounters. So another thing that we're doing is participatory modeling sessions with communities to try to model and understand the drivers of human-elephant conflict and see how this varies from village to village, and then work with the communities to come up with equitable solutions that protect both them, their livelihoods, and elephants. And hoping if we can get some appropriate funding, we can also bring some of the deterrent methods to the communities as well. And what I'm hoping is that all of this will accumulate in workshops that we will conduct next year. Again, if the conditions are all acceptable and the pandemic allows. We're going to be focused on bringing info to communities that will help build resilience against crop raiding and other challenges that the villagers face. We want to bring information about how to safely live with elephants, especially bringing education programs into schools that focus on the importance of elephants to the environment. Livelihood initiatives so that they have alternatives to farming, other means of income. We can do this too by empowering women. For example, there are already some really great basket weaving programs in the area going on. Instructional information on how to build various deterrent methods. And finally, yet another interdisciplinary initiative is information on climate smart agricultural practices. This is something we've been testing in our area as well. Techniques such as dye pits, micro water catchments, alternative and drought or pest resistant crops that help farmers improve their crop yields. We believe that working together, we can definitely find equitable solutions for both people and elephants. So you can see our team has been really busy. If you want to find out more, you can go to the project does have a Facebook page at facebook.com/LEsKenya. John, I hope I put enough wild elephant pictures in there for you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Lynn. Fantastic. Going back to the chilies, I can tell you, it's very fascinating to see it looked into in the biochemistry sense, because I can tell you, my wife is Thai, and you cannot find a hot enough chili in Kenya. Whenever we come and visit, we ask for chili, and there's chili, but it's not Thai chili. So very, very interesting to see if the spiciness of the chili is a dependent factor, and whether we can ship you out some I hate to say sorry Kenyan chili eaters, but I was going to say some proper chilies. But very interesting to see how that works. Also very interested in the bees and the bee dummy fences. I don't know if you can go into a little bit more detail on that, because we did a few. We have a very different species of bee. Our bees are far too calm, really, for to be deterrent compared with. So I'll send you some proper chilies. You send us some proper bees. Without insulting all of Kenya, I get myself out of trouble here.
Yeah.
But we
bees definitely cover.
Yeah, but when we did a few experimental setups, albeit with captive elephants, the dummy fences were the bees and no bees made no difference, but the fences didn't make any difference. They didn't stop the elephants at all. So very interesting to hear that, see how that might work with the dummy boxes, maybe how long it will last. I think that's the key question. But incredible that you're finding success. Kun U, are you online? Do you have any questions on the Facebook? No, we don't.
Yes.
Oh, hi, U.
Yeah, but we don't have the question on Facebook. It's just Heikki mentioned that in Japan they use the robot booth to scare the bears like around the farm area. Do you think that kind of method would help with human elephant conflict?
Of course, in Kenya they have no experience with wolves. That's one of the challenges with elephants, is they don't have a lot of predators, except for the young, of course, when they're at a small age. So elephants definitely scare easily, at least in our population. They spook pretty easy. So any kind of noise that might think them that there is a predator about, or that there's a threat, could work. It's definitely something I think we would consider looking at. I think everybody is looking for any kind of a solution to this problem. So, nothing's off the table for sure.
Yeah, that's true. One thing that you mentioned about, sorry, I missed at the beginning of your presentation, but you talk about the next one, like the construction guide. What is that like? Because I see you have some kind of electric fence as well, right?
No, we don't have electric fences with ours. But the metal strip fence, information on how to construct it is in the paper, but we wanted to do something that we could actually distribute to farmers, so they could have a piece of paper and look at it and see, exactly what they needed to be able to purchase or to try to salvage, and exactly how to construct it and put it together. So that'll probably just be like a two-sided flyer that has a little diagram. I have an artist working on it for me now that just illustrates it a little bit better than what a photograph would do, with all the dimensions and everything laid out really clearly. So hoping I'm going to have that in the next couple of weeks.
Oh, I see. And one question from Angela: has anyone tried to put the sow of bees instead of the bees themselves?
To put what instead of the bees? Sorry.
The bee noise, bee sound, like kind of, not the beehive, but put the sounds of the bees to scare the elephants.
There have been some other researchers that have tried that. I think they got reactions from elephants in those studies. I'm trying to recall them exactly. But the problem with something like that is there's a sound. Elephants would probably move away from it initially, but once they figure out that there's no consequences to that sound at some point, then they would probably habituate to it. That's really the challenge with this, is if there's not a reoccurring threat that they can actually see or experience or smell, then they're probably going to get used to it, which is one of the reasons I think that the beehive fences are so successful. Is, an elephant is not going to get used to a bee sting. That's not something they're going to get over. It's an innate fear because it can be deadly for an elephant. You know, bees will instinctively go for the soft parts of an elephant. They can go into an elephant's trunk. And imagine having several bee stings inside your nose. An elephant does not want to go through that. So I'm kind of thinking that that might be one of the reasons too, that we see that elephants, you know, with the metal fence it's a recurring noise. It's not like a one-time sound that may or may not scare them away that they get used to. Even if they break into a fence, if the wind blows, then the noise is going to kick back up and there's no pattern to it. So I think that's kind of, you know, the holy grail of elephant deterrence is finding you know, maybe several different methods to where there's that negative stimulus that happens over and over and the elephant can't get used to. You do see that with electric fences, but as we know, elephants have figured out ways around that as well. It's really hard. It's really hard to figure out something with one of the world's smartest creatures.
Agree with that.
And one of the other points, which is the methods you're looking into, which might rule out the playback and might rule out the wolves. And one of the great things about your work is you're looking into really cheap, simple, easily field fixable solutions that people can do without having even playback when it works, which it has worked in places. And as you say, generally the elephants get used to the idea and come back again over time, which is what fascinated me about the Kasigau fence, is that doesn't appear to have happened. I'm going to say yet, because I'm still a little bit. Yeah. And you said yet, you said yet in yours as well, but it seems to have lasted longer than other audible deterrents. But one of the problems is if the fence, or as you pointed out, if the fence breaks, anyone can fix it. The farmer can walk up to it and fix it easily for $1, and perhaps even less than that. Whereas if your playback system breaks in the rain, then you've got to go and buy some new speakers and maybe hire a technician to come and do it. Electric fences, certainly, as you say, they found out ways around it, but also the largest downfall of electric fences probably is the maintenance and the fact that somebody has to check it every day, and then you need some, even a small amount of knowledge, but you need some training and knowledge to be able to fix it. So that is fascinating. I wonder with the fence, and first when I read your paper, I wondered with the Kasigau fence whether it was you hit a sound that is really uncomfortable, a pitch that's really uncomfortable for elephants, because presumably that's there somewhere. This pitch that makes it's just that rather than the other, not just that, whether you've hit upon that key, that it's just very, very, very annoying to elephants. Hopefully not too annoying to people next door.
Well, and that's the interesting thing is people sleep with these right outside their houses. So I don't think that the noise itself is worrisome to elephants at all. What we've noticed in some of our camera trap images is that elephants are really spooked easily. For example, you know, one of the control methods is just a simple wire, just a string of wire, nothing special about it because it's the control. Time and time again, we have watched elephants bump into that wire and run terrified. And we think perhaps it's because they think it is electrified, which it's not. We've seen elephants reach under it and things like that. So I think elephants are already on alert when they're cooperating. They're conscious that they're doing something that they shouldn't, and it's very dangerous. And that, you know, they know that people are there, they can smell them, they're nearby. So I think the noise is what, you know, again, we don't know what an elephant's thinking. I wish we did and make things easier. But, you know, if the elephant can hear this noise, maybe people can too. Or if maybe this noise is associated to people, because one thing is elephants are afraid of people. That's their only predator, really. It's kind of, you know, people are viewed as an apex predator now. So if there's noise and they think it's associated with people, then, you know, and the fact that it's intermittent is probably what's going on there. But again, that's one of the things we're trying to figure out.
Okay, well, interdisciplinary, and maybe you can get some. I'm sure I'll defer to the fact that I'm wrong on this, but I was just going in my head exploring different pitches for elephants and getting some acoustic engineers involved in trying to work out what level you make something vibrate within the elephant's ear. But I will defer to your knowledge on the ground. I was just getting overexcited.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that either. There may be a pitch. It's actually a really interesting idea, and that again is out of my discipline. So like, you know, like you
Yeah,
said,
just
there's
getting excited. So I really like the setup. Have you found that elephants, I guess when you change out one method for another, you're changing out an ineffective method for a method you think you might be more effective? I was just wondering, because the fences are in the same place, do you think there's any residual memory from the elephants that something that disturbed them was there last time, and when you move it, if you put something else, if that changes the efficacy, or if that interferes with the efficacy of different or the apparent efficacy of different deterrent systems, is they may be remembering what was there last time?
Yeah, that is one of the challenges we face. When we originally designed the experiments, we randomized it. So if you approach one block, it's going to be a completely different configuration than another block. Ideally, we would love to reconfigure these each season, but it's just not something that's logistically feasible for such a small project like ours. But that is a concern, is that they may approach an area where they've had a bad experience before. But in the first two trials, we did look at the number of approaches to the different fields and to the different blocks, and we did an ANOVA analysis. So at least within those two trials, you did not see a preference for a block or for a type of field. You did see for preference for one block, but we also, one of the blocks was like near a really major crossroads. So at least in the first two trials, we didn't see them having any retention of memories of places to avoid. They were all approached pretty equally. That may change over time, and it's probably one of the things that we'll be looking at as well.
Very cool, thank you. And when you say over two periods, 2 sessions, that's over 2 years, isn't it?
Well, it was really kind of more over two growing seasons, so about a year long.
Right.
All the results that you saw today were from 2 of those trials. It's about 3 to 4 months for each of the trials. One in the short growing season and one in the long growing season, short rains and long rains. And then since when the experiment has stayed up, of course, this last year has been really difficult because a lot of us were not able to be there. But hopefully, as we start to get more of the data in from all the trials and start to accumulate it, we'll be able to see a lot more clearer results because we'll have a much bigger sample size.
Cool, but already significant amount of time. I mean, 3 or 4 months is not a short experiment. Okay, very good. So
yes.
Carry on.
Sorry, it's turned out to be a really multi-year experiment because it's been since 2017. And that's kind of one of the neat things about this is the way we've designed it. We can just switch the deterrents in and out, and this is a system that you could set up, anywhere with the same dimensions or similar dimensions, and test a variety of deterrents in rotation.
Perfect. Oh, you unmuted yourself. Do you have a question?
Yes. It's a question from Facebook from Jennifer. Why did you choose to mortar oil with the chili peppers?
Why did we choose to monitor? I'm sorry.
Yeah, the oil from the chili peppers. I think just why you use this species.
The species of chili pepper?
No, motor oil. Why did you choose motor oil?
Oh, motor oil. That is an established technique that's been in use for probably over a decade. I think we modeled ours from a Chang-Ah study that had 100% efficacy. And motor oil is also easily available. You can go to any machine shop and they give you a bucket of motor oil in Kenya. So the material there is free. And it's just the way that it's been designed for so long. But that's one of the things we want to explore, is see if there's other more environmentally friendly mixtures that we can try out that won't have to rely on motor oil. But there's a trade-off there. If we say want to use vegetable oil or alcohol or something else, then it's probably going to increase the expense for farmers. So there's always a catch to trying to alter things. There's always a trade-off.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, Lynn. That was fantastic. Great to vicariously, I know vicariously for yourself and us, travel back to Kenya. I have yet to make it to Tsavo or Kasigau, but it's definitely there. that's definitely there and on the list. It was, and we will find a way. We should go and do a field trip or something like that. I'm sure there's a way when everything opens up. And please do come and see us in Thailand, and you can have a look at some of the human-elephant conflict areas that we're working in the Surviving Together project and others as well. So, to everybody else, I think all that remains for me to do, if there are no more questions, is to thank our sponsors, Anantara Golden Triangle. If you are in Thailand and would like to come and be able to sit out here in the sun at 10 o'clock in the morning, or whatever time it is now, please do join us. You can have coffees. I can probably, if I turned around, see some of our elephants grazing away beneath us in their friendship group, so you can sit and enjoy the view. This will be the last, it looks as though this is going to be the last Elephant Professional lecture of the year. So thanks very much, Lynn. You are finishing off 2020 for us. Auspicious year that it has been. And because most of the other people don't want to talk to us over Christmas. And we will start again on the 5th of January with the going back to captive elephants and Annabelle, and talking about her scientific approach to enrichment and building herds soft release from. So this is Annabelle from the Elephant Conservation Center in Laos. So please do join us for that. I think 5th of January it's going to be. The downside for all of you, if we can't get the professionals to talk to you, I'm going to talk to you. So I think we'll try and ramp up the lockdown live streams over the peak season. So you might have to see more and more of me rambling on. Luckily, I'll put some elephants in the camera, so you can just mute it and have a look at the view. So until tomorrow we're going. Our next lockdown live stream will be tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. 4 o'clock p.m. our time, and then on Friday we will go at 7:30 in the morning. So we do have 2 more lockdown live streams this week, and we will continue those throughout the peak, but no elephant professionals, I'm afraid. Nobody wants to talk to us at Christmas, so everybody gets a break. So thank you very much. Goodbye from the Elephant Professional live streams for 2020. It actually only started in 2020. It's been a fantastic set. Please do have a look at all the other videos particularly if you're interested in human-elephant conflict or human-elephant coexistence. We have a lot of great speakers, but great to finish with some on a really high note with Lynn as well. So thank you very much, everybody, and goodbye. Do you want any final words, Lynn?
Just thanks so much for having me, and you guys keep working to save these magnificent elephants.
And on that note, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.